No, Eric and I did not have financial problems ever. Yes, Eric made more money than me. Do you make more money than your wives? Have I ever been financially reliant on Eric in the last 5 years? Absolutely not. Hello, and welcome back to WordWise. I'm your host, Kit, and today I'll be covering a 2023 email written to the police by Kouri Richins, who is currently on trial for M and attempted M and some financial crimes. If you're interested in seeing me break down her children's book about grief, the one she wrote with her 3 sons after allegedly poisoning their father, I covered that last week. It's on my Kouri Richins playlist. It also includes a brief history of the case if you're somehow unfamiliar with it. Next time, I'll be discussing the Walk the Dog letter, and that will be on the playlist as well. I am recording this on February 25th, 2026, so I haven't yet gotten to hear everything that will come out at trial. Today I'm going to talk about an email that Kouri sent to the police a few weeks before she was arrested back in 2023. To briefly recap the conclusions of my last video, what we've learned about Kouri so far is that she doesn't like to deal with negative emotions, and she struggles with knowing where to put question marks and periods. These are unusual punctuation problems to see in someone with a master's degree. As we continue to study her writing, we'll see what more we can learn about her. Are You With Me came out in March of 2023. Shortly afterward, Kouri did a radio interview and appeared on a local morning show called Good Things Utah. She knew at this point that the police were investigating her for Eric's death. Her television appearance is awkward. She refused to take off her jacket, which a lot of people found strange. It is a cute jacket. She wore it to her DV sentencing, too. I think she just feels confident in it. But her interview was strange for a few reasons. She compulsively used the filler phrase,
and, hoping that it can kind of help other kids, deal with this and kind of, find happiness some way or another.
In fact, she says it so many times that I think one of the hosts noticed and it got in her head and she almost blurted it out herself.
And it's only been a year. How did you process and say go from processing death to I need to write a book and help others?
A near miss. During the interview, Kouri claimed that she was unable to find any other children's books about grief.
I just watched the struggle that my kids were going through. And I actually, I went on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and trying to find something that we could use to cope at nights. Nights are the hardest, it seems like, for everybody when, dealing with anything. But I just wanted some story to read to my kids at night. And I just could not find anything. I couldn't find anything that really, suited them or helped them find comfort and peace. And so, I was like, let's just write one.
This appears to be a lie. Either she really didn't look, or she just didn't like what she found. But there are many, many books about grief for children. The women with whom she interviewed found her demeanor a bit off-putting as well.
And you do see the interview now and you go, okay, she wasn't emotional. And at the time I chalked that up to, well, her husband has only been gone for about a year. She might still be numb. Maybe this is how she's grieving. I can't judge how somebody else is grieving.
About this time, detectives went to Kouri's house, and she invited them in and gave them a 3-hour interview without her lawyer present. She had already retained Sky Lazaro to represent her in the DV case her sister-in-law Amy brought against her for the time Kouri throat punched her. Was it smart for Kouri to talk to detectives for 3 hours without her lawyer present? Obviously not. But my guess is that Kouri felt like turning them away would make her look guilty. As we're going to see in this email that she wrote as a follow-up, she's very concerned with looking innocent, and she takes that desire way too far. This email was sent on April 19th, 2023, so about 6 weeks after Are You With Me was released. The email is from Kouri to Chad Hoffmeyer and Frank Root at the sheriff's office, and it was CC'd to Detective Jeff O'Driscoll. Kouri doesn't appear to have CC'd her lawyer. I guess I can't say for certain that Kouri didn't share the email with Sky, but I think it's unlikely. No lawyer would approve this email. It begins like this. Hey there! I thought I would clarify some other items on your list that you spoke to redacted about. We don't know to whom the police showed this list that Kouri mentions. But we learn later that they've been talking to her friends, so it's possibly one of them. Right from the top, we know two things. First, Kouri has been asking people exactly what they've been discussing with the police. Second, Kouri is trying to control the narrative. She didn't let the people the police got in touch with answer those questions for her, or even let them go unanswered. No, she jumped in to answer them herself. She's so eager to defend herself that she didn't wait for the police to ask her, or preferably her lawyer. She just went ahead and emailed them. The beginning of February last year, my kids had a soccer tournament in Mesquite. The day before we left, February 2nd, 2022, I tested positive for COVID. I have attached the picture of my test from on my counter in my kitchen from when I first found out, photo 1. I had sent it to my mom and redacted to let them know because I was just around both of them. Eric was the coach of the soccer team, and I'm the annoying mom on the sideline that never stops yelling, winking, tongue out emoji. We don't miss games or tournaments. We're a huge soccer family. Immediately, we get a sense of how Kouri writes. Note that there are several missing periods. In my video about Kouri's picture book, I noted her unusual difficulty with sentence terminating punctuation. Finding the same issue in this email seems like another indicator that Kouri really did write her kids' book. I frequently see misused commas, plenty of misused apostrophes and quotation marks, but periods? Almost never. At the editing service where I worked, our bread and butter were academic articles written by people who don't speak English as a first language. Even when I was working on those documents, I rarely saw periods misused. This difficulty with sentence-ending punctuation seems pretty specific to Kouri, and that's why I think Kouri wrote Are You With Me? I think she wrote it, and Shane Walter, who is a ghostwriter and an editor and a spokesperson at Book Writing Lane, went through and added question marks, failing to realize that she had broken the questions into multiple sentences that needed to be recombined, and that's how we ended up with that book. I'm not sure why the timing of Kouri getting COVID matters. She's talking about a trip she and Eric and their boys took a month before Eric died, and apparently she needs to prove that she had COVID with enough certainty that she emailed pictures of her positive test. My guess is that the police aren't sure she was really on that trip. And I have to admit, it's a little odd that she just happens to have a photograph of her positive test. A little convenient. Almost like she knew she was going to need an alibi later. I'm also noticing that Kouri immediately begins making statements that define her identity. I'm the annoying mom on the sideline who never stops yelling. She's being a bit tongue-in-cheek here, but it's clear she wants the police to know that she's present and participating at the kids' soccer matches. Given that this is the second half of a compound sentence, and the first half says that Eric was the team's coach, I'd wager that Kouri included this because she unconsciously wants to clarify that her contribution is equal to Eric's. I'd even go so far as to say that she includes the emoji because she's a bit self-conscious about needing to assert herself in that way. It's interesting to me because of that interview Kouri did on Good Things Utah, the one in which she said, you know, almost compulsively. We all use little filler words and expressions when we're speaking spontaneously, but Kouri was trying to wear that phrase out. She was ready for next season's filler words.
And with, with,
It's almost like a tick. And I think that the emojis in this email function kind of the same way. She knows at this point that the cops are onto her. Including emojis in an email to the police who are investigating you for ending your husband's life is completely inappropriate. This is a serious situation. Even more inappropriate to include an emoji with its tongue out. But Kouri is so cheery in this email, and that seems to be a core feature of how she presents to the world. I saw a video of the hearing where she pled no contest to assaulting Amy, and she was cheery during the hearing. She was chomping on gum. Between all that and her demonstrated reluctance to deal with negative emotions, I'm guessing that putting on a happy face is vitally important to Kouri. She also writes, "We don't miss games or tournaments. We're a huge soccer family." That's obviously important to her. This need to narrowly define one's public image is the kind of thing we've seen with a number of female criminals recently. This concern over how others perceive them. It's going on my red flags list. When we found out I had COVID, I didn't want to miss the soccer tournament, nor did I want to get my kids sick. So I stayed at Casablanca. I didn't want to risk getting my boys sick during the tournament and then not play well. I brought a box of at-home tests with me to test every day so I could either join the boys staying at my father-in-law's or at least be with them during the game. Casablanca is about 5 minutes from the soccer field. Actually, here's a picture of the room number I stayed in. I had taken a picture for my mom and Eric. I was still positive every day, pictures attached. I would take pictures of my test to Eric to say, still positive. You can check Eric's phone for this. I stood on the sidelines wearing a mask and not interacting with anyone. Happy to get other soccer parents to attest to this. Eric had gotten COVID after we got home from Mesquite. It sounds like the police have accused her of not actually attending this tournament, which would make sense if she really had COVID. Did she really risk getting other people sick and blow all that money on a hotel so she could stand on the sideline and not interact with anyone? The only Casablanca in Mesquite I could find was the Casablanca Resort and Casino in Mesquite, Nevada. It is not well reviewed. However, I'm really starting to wonder why Kouri has all of this evidence of her stay at the Casablanca Resort and Casino. Why does she have a picture of her room number? One positive test I can accept, but one every day? Why did she text Eric photos of her positive tests instead of typing, still positive? Now, she might just be a visual thinker. She's into houses and interior design. She probably does her own photos for real estate properties. Maybe she just likes taking pictures. But if the cops think that she wasn't where she said she was, isn't it convenient that she has so many photos to back up her story? You asked Redacted about any exotic vacations I've taken since Eric's passing. I went on 2 trips last year. One, my kids tried out at a soccer camp in SLC to qualify to play in Spain in June, and both my kids made it. So yes, I took them to Spain in October 2022. I have attached their invitation letters. From this line, you asked Redacted about any exotic vacations I have taken. We get confirmation that she's been asking her acquaintances exactly what they talked to the police about. The fact that she's preemptively provided the cops evidence of her trip is one of the things that makes this paragraph feel defensive. That and, so yes, I took them to Spain. There are various reasons the cops asked about exotic vacations, by the way. For one, Kouri and her affair partner had reportedly booked a vacation at the Sandals Resort on St. Martin's. They booked before Eric's death for a month after Eric's death. If you've forgotten those iconic late-night ads from the 90s, Sandals Resorts are a chain of hotels for couples where the alcohol is free and most rooms seem to feature a complicated soaking tub.
Sandals is for lovers. Sandals is for lovers. Love is all you need.
That's all you need at Sandals. Love.
Another reason the police might have asked about vacations is that, according to court filings, shortly after Eric's death, Kouri flew to Mexico to inquire about bariatric surgery. Now, I'm guessing that's not accurate because Kouri clearly isn't a candidate for weight loss surgery. It was probably lipo or a tummy tuck or maybe even a BBL. Still strange behavior for a new widow. Also, Eric and I went to Mexico every year, sometimes twice. We traveled a lot. We have taken the boys to Mexico a few times. We like to go in January. However, January of 2022, we could not go because Eric had his hunting trip to Mexico trip of 2 weeks planned, and it was too much that month. This is not new for us to go to Mexico or for us to go out of the country or on a vacation with our kids. I took my kids and my mom came with us in August of 2022 to Mexico. As I hope you understand, the months prior to this since Eric's death have been hard to deal with. This paragraph feels very defensive. Something about the idea that she's taken exotic vacations has really ticked Kouri off. She's chipper, but she's also condescending. Shades of Lori Daybell. I also think she's bragging a little when she says they traveled a lot. It feels like she's playing the sympathy card with, as I hope you understand, the months prior to this since Eric's death have been hard to deal with. But in an aggressive, almost sarcastic way. No, I have never been to Key West or the Keys in Florida. However, my nanny went with her family in June 2022, so maybe you have something mixed up. I'm not aware of a Key West connection to this case. Maybe we'll hear about it during the trial, or maybe this really was a mix-up. Kouri is implying, subtly, that the police investigation is incompetent. Eric's affair was the same year I moved out, the trust was created, as well as him looking into a divorce. I never actually moved out. I moved my clothes out one weekend to make Eric understand I'm not kidding about leaving him if he doesn't end things with redacted. I did this on a Thursday or Friday while he was out of town. I was home Monday. I never stayed another night at that other house. Eric and I figured things out like most couples do. Redacted was her name. He changed her name in his phone so I wouldn't know about it, and honestly, we worked things out, and after that, I never went through his phone again to see if he changed it back. But you have his phone and can check. Did Kouri just correctly use a semicolon? Again? What is this woman's relationship to punctuation? I can't wrap my head around it. Earlier in this paragraph, she used a comma when she should have used a period, and then she hits me with the semicolon. It's not even just the fact she used it correctly that's messing with my mind. I'd say she used it well. Yes, she could have used a comma, but the use of a semicolon draws specific, and in this case snarky, attention to the relationship between the two statements she's connecting. She's saying, why are you bothering to ask about this stuff when we both know you have Eric's phone and can find out for yourself? It's quite incredible. The DA is alleging that Kouri was having an affair at the time of Eric's death. The prosecution is claiming to have text messages between Kouri and her paramour. So I don't know if Eric really had an affair or if this is Kouri projecting. She's also saying that his affair was the reason he consulted a divorce attorney and created a trust behind her back. Because he was cheating. Not because he found out she'd stolen $100,000 from him, put 30 grand on his credit cards, and diverted all of his business's tax payments to her own accounts. The line, "we figured things out like most couples do," is interesting to me. She's minimizing their relationship problems. Yes, all couples have relationship issues and they figure them out. That's not what this was. Not all couples cheat and move out and mislabel contacts in their phones. Speaking of which, we're seeing more of that head-in-the-sand approach to dealing with conflict here when she says she never checked to see if Eric had changed the supposed affair partner's contact back to her real name. Kouri just decided to assume he had, and everything was fine. Eric and I went to redacted counseling in Camas, 801, phone number redacted. We only went about 4 times maybe. It wasn't for us. So I've done couples counseling. 4 sessions is just scratching the surface. And it wasn't for us is so vague as to be meaningless. It wasn't for us could mean anything from, we found the therapist's insistence on using hand puppets off-putting, to, I kept getting called out and I didn't like it. I'm guessing the latter is closer to the real reason Kouri and Eric didn't keep going. The next excerpt has what I think is a typo. When Kouri writes Woody, she's referring to Detective Jamie Woody, who's a woman, but I think Kouri accidentally calls Woody him. At least that's my best guess about what's going on here. Redacted and redacted are the same person, as I'm assuming you know that? Haha. I'm also assuming Redacted told Woody her husband got a call from him and gave all this information, lol, yet he didn't ever go in to talk to detectives? Ironic how these things work. It sounds like Kouri's upset that the police let her friend's husband interview with Detective Woody by phone, but Kouri got an actual visit from the police. Perhaps. That makes as much sense to me as anything. Kouri is implying that she's being treated differently from other people here, and that's why she says, ironic how these things work. Although Kouri understands the concept of irony about as well as she understands question marks, there's nothing ironic here. She's just annoyed. The tone of this paragraph is so strange. She's condescending and flippant and also sarcastic. Who says ha ha and LOL in an email to the police? Other than, like, the Zodiac. Mental health. Yes, I got postpartum after my second child in 2014. Yes, I took medication for it. I'm glad she got treatment. I'm curious, though, about the fact that she doesn't specify what type of postpartum condition she had. There's another email that's very short, a couple sentences. I won't bother reading it. But it's her confirming to Detective Woody that she was prescribed Seroquel in 2018. I actually took Seroquel for 12 years. I have severe insomnia, and it's one of only 2 medications that help. It was originally developed as an antipsychotic, and I think that using it for sleep is still off-label. It's only approved as a primary treatment for schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, but it is approved for depression in combination with another antidepressant. I can't find anything online that says it's been approved or even studied in the treatment of postpartum depression, but I did find reports of it being used for postpartum psychosis, which is an interesting possibility. Kouri told the police that she was taking it to help with sleep, which is entirely possible. That's why I took it. However, it's not officially approved for insomnia, and I doubt it's a first-line treatment for it, and I doubt it's frequently prescribed to people who don't have coexisting mental health issues. And it probably shouldn't be. This is a really powerful medication with serious side effects. When I started taking it, it hadn't been well studied, but we now know that long-term use can cause metabolic syndrome, weight gain, diabetes, high cholesterol, and tardive dyskinesia. Plus, it took me 2 years to get off of it. It was also found in Eric's stomach after his death. Unlike Kouri, Eric did not have a prescription for it. Did she give it to him? He had an astonishing amount of fent in his stomach and 5 times the lethal dose in his bloodstream. Did Kouri think she could sedate him with the Seroquel in order to make sure that he was too sleepy to realize he was in danger or call for help? Dark thought. It seems like Kouri is having difficulty hiding her annoyance at this point in the email. She's become very curt. No, Eric and I did not have financial problems, ever. Yes, Eric made more money than me. Do you make more money than your wives? Have I ever been financially reliant on Eric in the last 5 years? Absolutely not. Now we're getting to the meat. Allegedly, these are bald-faced lies. They didn't have financial problems ever. She was millions in debt. Yes, Eric made more money than me. Do you make more money than your wives? She's gone from cutesy defensive to aggressive defensive. She might as well have written, "What of it?" She sounds offended that they even asked. And then she denies she's been financially dependent on Eric in the last 5 years, which is also a lie if everything the forensic accountant said is true. I think that the reason Kouri is losing control here isn't just that she's lying. I think this is a really sore spot for her. She's offended by them pointing out that she made less money than Eric because she desperately wants to be financially successful. She refuses to admit she was financially reliant on Eric because she wants to present herself as a super successful businesswoman. And this is especially significant because Kouri doesn't appear to have reason to be defensive. Okay, she was financially dependent on Eric. She had 3 very small children, she was postpartum, she was in grad school, and Eric was making more than enough money to support them. There's no shame in any of that. But she's still defensive, so business success must be vitally important to Kouri's self-esteem. Eric did not want me working because 1, his first wife cheated on him with a guy at work. 2, redacted. 3, Eric wanted us to live the typical conservative life where the man takes care of his family and the wife is a homemaker, wife, mom, and that's it. That is not my personality and not the way I was raised. I am very independent. Even when I stayed home with my kids the first few years, I was in grad school for years because I wanted to be more and do more than be a homemaker, and I did. And when I did and started my business, it took some adjusting, but Eric and I were fine with it. We hired my nanny and everything worked out. There's a lot to unpack here. I have no idea if Eric's first wife really cheated on him, and I don't care. I'm more curious about this redacted reason, but I have nothing about which to even speculate. Gosha pointed out that it doesn't have to be something sinister. It might just be mentioning a medical condition one of her kids has that requires a bit of extra care. The prosecution filings do state that Kouri went to grad school, but we don't know where or what her degree is in. She frames this conflict with Eric as a clash in values. She describes him as a chauvinist who wanted her to be small, and casts herself as the victim who overcame his sexism through tenacity and grit, and goes as far as disparaging homemakers as somehow less than. But she also says that when she started her business, Eric was fine with it. That contradicts the rest of the paragraph. And I can't help wondering, did Eric have a problem with Kouri having a career, or did he have a problem with her hemorrhaging cash? If she'd wanted to go back to being a cashier at Home Depot, which is apparently how they met, she was the cute checkout girl and he was the mason who came in all the time, would Eric have had an issue with that? I have to question this characterization, because Eric grew up with two sisters and a mother who all appear quite independent. His mother was a teacher for decades. I think that part of the reason he was attracted to Kouri was her strong personality and drive. But Kouri sees it differently, or at least she wants the police to see it differently. Finally, I want to note that we're again seeing Kouri express strong feelings about how she's viewed by others. She wanted to be more and do more than being a homemaker, to which she adds, "and I did." And then she says it again, "and when I did and started my business, it took some adjusting." The fact that she says "I did" twice suggests she really wants to emphasize it. She really wants to be known for her accomplishments. And my suspicion is that this is where the root of her conflict with Eric arose. It's clear that she wanted to be a successful businesswoman. Eric was a successful businessman. He was pulling in more than $1 million a year, and he was spending 5 out of 12 months on hunting trips. The house where they lived belonged to him. Kouri frames this as an issue of feminism, but it sounds more like an issue of jealousy. My nanny, redacted, 801 phone number redacted, moved out because she was engaged and she and her fiancé were moving in together. That was always supposed to be temporary. She's worked full-time for Eric and I for years prior to his death. If anyone can tell you about our marriage, it's her. She lived it with us. Feel free to call her. Is it strange that Kouri keeps saying my nanny, like the nanny didn't work for Eric too? I don't know. In this section of the letter, Kouri starts telling the cops different people to contact to back up her claims. Which claims? I'm not sure. Is she saying that the nanny can testify that Kouri and Eric were happy? What was supposed to be temporary? The lines, "if anyone can tell you about our marriage, it's her, she lived it with us," is really bizarre. I assume Kouri just meant that the nanny could provide insight into their relationship and that she didn't mean to imply that she and Eric and the nanny were a throuple. Redacted has already submitted her phone records to you to prove that your toll is incorrect. Redacted will also be submitting hers over to you guys today or tomorrow. I am working on getting mine. However, Eric's business partner is not being cooperative. But you can call Redacted and ask for them, and he would probably give them to you. 801 phone number redacted. I don't know what this first sentence means. I assume there's a typo in it. Redacted has already submitted her phone records to you to prove that your toll is incorrect. The police have a toll? Are they guarding a bridge?
But a toll is a toll, and a roll is a roll. And if we don't get no tolls, then we don't eat no rolls.
If it's not a typo, maybe she was talking about how many calls or messages were sent between Kouri and this woman. I did hear during one of the hearings that Kouri and her house cleaner Carmen, the one who helped her procure Fent, had exchanged over 700 text messages in like a month-long period. And the name Carmen might fit neatly in that blacked out spot. Maybe Kouri is trying to argue that she and Carmen weren't really that close, and the number of text messages the police have counted is incorrect. It sounds like Kouri and 2 other women have submitted their phone records to the cops, but Eric's business partner is refusing. My guess is he's refusing to take Kouri's calls, not refusing to help with the investigation. I know what time I went to bed that night. There's no hole in my story. Hopefully by obtaining 4 phone record documentation, you guys can see this too. Did the police accuse Kouri of having holes in her story? According to the preliminary hearing, the hours that her phone was active don't match up with the hours when she said she was asleep. Her attitude here is very snippy, and this last line is passive-aggressive. She sounds like she's struggling to control her anger. Happy to clarify or provide anything else you may need. I just want this over. I just want our lives back and to move on and grieve and mourn my husband without looking over my shoulder constantly for you guys or the idiotic private investigator or the Richins family. Whatever I can do to help close this out, just ask. I'll give you or tell you whatever you want to know. I find it a bit hard to believe that all she wants is to move out and get over her husband's death, given that she wrote this email while on a small book tour to promote a book about her husband's death. And she had 4 more books about death coming down the pipeline. This claim that she can't grieve because of the investigation feels like a manipulative attempt to make the cops feel guilty. I'm doubtful that will be effective. There's another missing period here. It's interesting that she knows about the PI. I wonder how she found out and why she feels he's idiotic. It's also interesting that she describes herself as having to look over her shoulder constantly. Why would she need to worry about the cops looking into her if she's done nothing wrong? Please check with the lab on those gummies. Kouri repeatedly claimed that the only candy Eric partook of was gummies. You know, the kind that make you giggle and binge Papa Meat vids. When the police arrived after Eric's death, she implied that the fent must have been in the gummies. I've never heard of gummies having fent in them, but it's probably possible. My impression, though, is that in states where MMJ is legal, most of the gummies available are diverted from the legal supply, so they're not super likely to be contaminated. Medical candy is legal in Utah, but as far as I know, Eric didn't have an MMJ card. Nor did he have THC in his system, and the gummies the police found in the house didn't have fent in them. P.S. Chad, I hear you also know our good friends Redacted. Their son and my son play on the same soccer team. When Eric passed, Redacted took over coaching. You guys could even chat with them, if you feel necessary. Kouri Richins. I couldn't have killed anyone, because we know the same people. She's got to cram one more character reference in here. Kouri is relying a great deal on her reputation for a defense. Also, the postscript should go after the signature. Otherwise, it's just part of the body text. Thus ends Kouri Richins' email to the cops. What could we have done to make this email better? Just to be clear, I'm not a lawyer and this isn't legal advice. If you need to write a letter to the police protesting your innocence, talk to a real lawyer, and definitely take their advice over mine. Obviously, there's a tone issue in Kouri's email that needs to be addressed, and it's rooted in the difference between being guarded and being defensive. If you're accused of poisoning your husband by the police, it's natural to say to yourself, this could go sideways really easily. I need to be careful about how I express myself. It's normal to be unhappy with the situation because you understand the gravity of being convicted of a crime, whether or not you did it. But Kouri instead fakes cheery obliviousness. It sounds like she's trying to convince the police that she's so innocent she doesn't even feel worried. But she should feel worried. That's a sensible reaction. Her peppering her email with emojis and internet acronyms comes across as just a little deranged in this circumstance. Even worse, Kouri sounds defensive. Imagine this. The police think you killed your elderly neighbor and stole her jewelry. You didn't. They tell you there's a hole between 6 and 8 that evening when you don't have an alibi. The truth is you were home by yourself, eating Honey Nut Cheerios and watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Do you respond, yeah, unfortunately I was by myself then? Or do you reply, there is no hole in my story? Kouri's response doesn't sound like that of someone with nothing to hide. That's my opinion, obviously. It is possible that she's done nothing wrong and she's just a fundamentally defensive person who reacts like that to everything and also happens to be getting framed for more than 30 crimes. While I think that's incredibly unlikely, it did cross my mind that if you were going to frame someone for a serious crime, for whatever reason, someone seriously defensive would be the best choice of victim because they'd be the most likely to act guilty even if they weren't. They'd also be the most likely to panic and try to create evidence in order to exonerate themselves of the crime they didn't commit, which is what we're going to discuss next week. Food for thought. What Kouri should have done, if she wasn't willing to refer the police to her lawyer for some reason, was give simple, clear, straightforward answers to their questions. Clarify the timeline. Don't argue, don't brag, and don't say more than you need to. No, I haven't taken any exotic trips. I took my sons to Spain to play in a soccer tournament, and my mother and I took the boys on vacation in Mexico. An email like this should be short and to the point, and Chad Hoffman's response email was just that. Thanks for the clarification, Kouri. I don't know that it matters either, but I appreciate the communication. Best, Chad. Short and sweet. What have we learned about Kouri from reading this email? We've learned a lot, actually. We've learned that she's very concerned about how she's perceived, and that she wants to be perceived in a particular way. Image is important to Kouri. About a year before she wrote this email, she was pulled over by the police so they could serve a warrant on her phone. This stop took place in her neighborhood. While she was sitting in the front seat of a police car, she started crying, and the officer asked if she needed some air. She replied tartly, "No, my neighbors can see this. It's so embarrassing. No, I don't want some air." Again, we're seeing how concerned she is with how she's seen by others. I think it goes way beyond just being thought of as innocent. I think she's always been very worried about her image and reputation. We've learned that she writes like a 14-year-old in about 2004 with lulls and emoji and ha ha ha. Is that emotional immaturity, or am I just behind the times? And we've learned that she can't use sentence terminating punctuation correctly, but she can correctly employ a semicolon. The fact that both this email and Are You With Me contain a wealth of period and question mark errors, but correctly use semicolons, blows my mind. To me, that's strong evidence that she's the real author of Are You With Me, because that specific juxtaposition is so unusual. It doesn't quite rise to the level of DNA level specificity, but it's certainly blood type level specific. We've learned that Kouri is capable of being chipper and perky and bubbly, while at the same time being passive-aggressive, defensive, and sarcastic. There seems to be a lot of anger in Kouri that she's struggling to keep tamped down along with the rest of her negative emotions. But I think the most important thing we've learned is that the story she's telling is that she's a wildly successful girl boss who doesn't need financial support from her own husband, and that their marital problems were rooted in a clash between her feminism and his chauvinism. We know she was lying about the former. I guess I can't say for certain that she was lying about the latter, but I do think it's significant that Eric didn't put his father or his business partner in charge of his trust. He put his sister in charge. That makes me question this idea of him as a traditionalist who thought women should stay home and watch the children and do nothing more. Both Eric's sisters are married. One hyphenated her last name, and the other didn't change her name at all. Eric's mother worked even though she had no financial need to, from the look of it. Now, maybe somewhere along the way Eric got red-pilled, but I have yet to see any evidence of that. My guess is that Kouri wants to present Eric as a chauvinist in order to bolster her story of triumphing over him. I was thinking about the fact that Kouri lives in Utah. I've never been there, but I've heard that, especially in more well-to-do circles, image and reputation are very important. And Utah is the multi-level marketing hub of the world. It's the home of boss babe culture. My impression is that Kouri really wanted to succeed in that world. She wanted to be the girl boss people looked up to. So she went to grad school, got her real estate license, and tried to make her dream a reality. One question I haven't answered yet is why she didn't let Eric advise her. He had a successful business that he built himself. If she needed startup capital, why didn't she take his advice on how to get it instead of secretly taking out a loan in his name? Did she ask him for startup capital and he refused to give it to her? What is her degree in, and why didn't it help prepare her to run a business? There's a lot we still don't know, but one thing we have identified is that Kouri's self-esteem is wrapped up in her identity as an entrepreneurial girl boss who can do it all. And Eric, either through his success or his criticism, threatened that image. For some reason, Kouri didn't see herself and Eric as a team. She didn't want him to be any part of her success. I see that jealousy and competitiveness as almost as much of a motive as the money she expected to inherit from his death. Next time, I'll be discussing the walk the dog letter Kouri wrote to her mother from jail, a letter in which she laid out how her family should manipulate her lawyer, made recommendations for things her friends could say on Good Morning America, and figured out how to smuggle oral hygiene contraband into the jail. It's pretty wild. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking or subscribing. Please don't reach out to anyone involved in this case, and remember to use your words wisely. Thanks. This email was sent on April 2023. April difficulty with sentence. And Shane Walter, who's both she and Eric, and that core feel defensive. Where am I? Leading him. It's only proved and grieve and mourn my husband without overlooking my shoulder. She's got to get really evilly. Is that right? Emojis and internet acronyms comes along as just a little deranged in this circumstance. And did I just say acronyms when I meant acronyms? The window's not even open this time. Are the cops in a high-speed chase with an 18-wheeler? Wednesday night in the quietest neighborhood on earth. Between 6 and 8 in that evening when you don't have an alibi. Did I say in that evening? If she needed startup capital as an entrepreneurial blah blah. We've learned that Kouri is capable of being chippy and perker. That was a good one. I made it through a whole page without flubbing a line.
And with